This ought to be a little bit fun. To be serious has made a response video. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Okay, I am specifically, I guess, responding to Gloom, Boom, and Doom, or Amendum, or whatever he's calling himself this week.
Okay, so right there. I mean, she knows the context of why I have this other account, alright? It's because my account was closed for a year. Because people stir up a lot of hate by calling people misogynist and then Holocaust denier. Yeah, that's right. By lying about them, playing little backdoor games with their little cackle. Yeah, that's for you, Boundless Eyes. Little cackle of henyas get together and play their little backdoor, little secret games and create little secret clubs backed by Amendum Club. So, yeah, so that's the context of that. But yeah, you know who I am. You don't have to play that game with the name game when you're part of the reason why I needed the other name, you little flagger. Yeah, you did all that kind of crap, didn't you? That's right, you downrated every one of my videos when it used to be detectable. So don't play this game.
I did a video asking antinatalists the question, and perhaps I didn't word it exactly correctly. Although I do have to, as an aside, say that I can't remember Boom, Gloom, Doom, whatever his name is. I can't remember him. I can't remember him.
Yeah, can't play games. Just have to keep playing your little game. So here you do this little obnoxious game playing. Again, this is just this passive aggressive crap. Boundless Eyes, this passive aggressive crap. And then people, they especially sometimes women, they want to play this game, all right? Like they're the innocent victim. They're not the victim. They're the aggressor, and they should be called on it.
Ever saying that any argument of the hundreds presented, perhaps thousands by this point, presented to him, has ever, not one argument has ever been logically consistent. I wasn't even trying to do a debate. This is YouTube.
What does that even mean? Does somebody know exactly what the fuck she just said? Because I don't get it. Let's try it again.
Ever saying that any argument of the hundreds presented, perhaps thousands by this point, presented to him, has ever, not one argument has ever been logically consistent. I wasn't even trying to do a debate. This is YouTube.
Yeah, so that's an excuse again, okay? So where other people are saying, okay, look, I'm going to present an argument, I'm going to make this whole context of our existence, get into this whole value equation stuff, spell it all out, even derived energy. Guy who wrote the book even has been quoted in this argument. So that's all the context here, and you're just going to use some excuse. Well, this is YouTube. I wasn't trying to. Well, if that's not what you were trying to do, then all you were doing is being a pain in the ass. All right? Because everybody can just play that game. All right? So anything you want to accomplish, I just say there's no button for it. There's no button for it. So I mean, I wish I could go back in time, right? You know, for women's suffrage when they were all complaining because the men were being too oppressive. And let's go back in time, and then we'll just say there's no button for that bitch. Yeah, we could even have t-shirts. There's no button for that bitch. Yeah.
States are very difficult here. I was trying to present the idea that absolute moral imperative positions almost always...
What is that? What use is that? Okay, I mean, almost always... So if something is almost always, then you can't even talk about it. You can't even go near it because it's an almost always. And that's not even true. Every great thing that the human race has ever done has always been one of those almost always things. Right? I mean, again, I'll go back to slavery. Slavery didn't end because somebody pressed a button. Slavery ended because men were willing to get on a battlefield and get fucking horribly killed. Yeah.
Lead to problems. And not that there isn't a very serious dilemma for human beings. There is a very serious dilemma. There are too many.
No, that's a different subject. So you want to keep changing the subject. You want to keep bending the subject to something that you want to accomplish in some way you don't even define. Right? You're going to control how many people. You're going to reduce human population. How exactly? The only human population you're going to have any chance of reducing is the civilized human population. So what have you gained? You've gained absolutely nothing, okay? Because the uncivilized population will just keep reproducing. So that's going to fail dismally.
Human beings on this planet, and we are living in a way that is not sustainable for our numbers. I agree completely. The remedy to that does not seem to be
yeah, well, again, you're saying what things aren't. You're not giving an argument, though. There's no logic behind any statement you make. You just make declarations. You declare. It doesn't seem. I mean, you've got to do better than that.
Advocating that there can be absolutely no live births. Now, I know that somebody, probably gloom, boom, and doom, will tell me perhaps that is not their absolute position. It's even in his response video.
Well, look, the point is, at first you argue with people, right? Like, okay, let's say on any subject, you're going to make statements here that there's no such thing as these absolutist statements and this blah, 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 blah. And look, right now they're taxing cigarettes, the most taxed substance on earth, right? Now, does it kill innocent people? No. Is there any evidence that it kills innocent people? No. Yet it's the most taxed substance on earth. Not alcohol, the thing that's proven to kill literally worldwide probably a million people, right? Innocent people, little kids and stuff. Is that's taxed at 10% of the tax rate of cigarettes. Now you make sense of that. So obviously societies do stupid things. Right now there's all kinds of tyranny. But the point is that reproduction is an imposition. Just like the imposition of suffering on animals. So you're going to tell me that if our culture was 90% vegetarian, we wouldn't probably tell that last 10% to go fuck themselves? We wouldn't sit there and say, okay, yeah, you can keep your slaughterhouses. I mean, would it make any sense? Let's say you went to one of these, countries where they don't step on bugs. The majority of people don't step on bugs, and they do all this stuff to be very careful. Would they have a law that just said, yeah, but you can step on as many as you want. So you can just walk in front of the Janesians, and you can just step on every fucking bug you want to and laugh in their face. You think you could legally do that in those countries? No, I bet you can't.
Seems to be saying that it should be the law that should be the way that we regulate human births. That is amazing to me, to think that a social engineer...
amazing to you. Why? Why is this amazing? Again, there's lots of people on Earth right now have absolutely no interest. Apparently they don't have any genetics or something. They don't have any human genetics. And they have no interest in having children. No interest in it as something to do with their time. They consider it absolutely, it would be a horror and a burden to have children. It would be a complete corrosive acid on their life. It would ruin their life. So yeah, there's probably a few 100 million people, at least, who understand that. And so you're going to say all those people don't have regular human genetics? Is that your argument? Because they've decided not to have kids. They don't have normal human genetics anymore. They're not normal humans anymore, genetically, because somehow they have become smart enough to know that babies are created by sperm and egg, and that babies aren't created merely as an obligation of sex. Yeah, that's true.
A program can be written into law that will have the effect of forcing people to limit their reproduction.
I mean, you won't even allow a law that limits their reproduction. So if some everybody wants to have 18 kids on welfare, you wouldn't even limit their reproduction? And if their kids are living in squalor, you wouldn't even limit their reproduction? I mean, you don't even think somebody should have $1,000 in the bank before they're allowed to reproduce? They should just be allowed to do it. It's because it's theirs. Their reproduction is theirs. They can impose a new life, impose on a new consciousness all the risks. They could have some horrible genetic defect that has a 100% chance of being produced in their child, and it'd be okay with you. You wouldn't put any limits on their reproduction, so they could have 20 of these kids that were, you know, going to have this horrible disease and die before they're 22 or something, and you wouldn't put a limit on their reproduction. If they were profoundly retarded, you wouldn't put a limit on their reproduction. Fuck, then you're an idiot.
I think the only way to do it is to get people to think about the horrible dilemma human beings find themselves in.
Yeah, well, whatever. That argument has been made, but it's not the subject, okay? Antinatalism, especially as pointed out in the book, is about this whole equation that you can't make. If you don't create the need, there's no necessity, okay? It's that simple. All the negative liabilities are eliminated, and you can't be deprived of a positive. It's impossible. It's made out of need, and you can only have need if you're alive. So if you're not alive, you can't need. It's a pretty straightforward argument. That's antinatalism. You want to talk about something else, that's your business. You want to talk about Green Planet and help Gaia and save poor little Gaia so we can, you know, exploit more of the environment for longer. Yeah, well, that's bullshit.
I mean, and when I said, as you will see on the screen here, this is what I said. You are asking a species not to follow the dictates of its genetic programming.
Again, you said follow the dictates of its genetic programming. So you're saying I am a defect. I am abnormal. My genetics are somehow broken because I have never felt like there was a demand that I have children. I never felt any kind of demand, never noticed any demand whatsoever, because I'm aware of what a condom can accomplish.
Well, at that point, when he addressed that point of mine, as usual, he starts out by insulting me. He says, and this is what he says, I'm not going to play it, it's just too tedious, and you wonder why you're maligned when you talk about science. Well, excuse me, gloom, boom, doom, or whatever you call yourself.
Yeah, so that's what, fourth time she said that, third time she said that, whatever you call yourself thing. Yeah, I call myself what I have to call myself because little weasels like you, you know, fuck with other people's right to speak their mind.
If you do not think that the reason that animals, not just human beings, but the reason that all animals screw is because of their genetic programming.
Right, so they have sex because of genetic programming. That's exactly what I said. They fornicate because they have a desire to do it. That desire is genetically programmed. There is no genetic demand. You use the word genetic demand that they have children.
Then what planet do you come from? Okay? What planet?
Obviously, I come from a planet where they are aware of condoms and other measures of birth control. That's the planet I come from.
Planet are you from? I mean, this is the most absurd attempt I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, I guess you haven't heard your own then. Play your own video. You've now done it twice. You're now twice defending the proposition that we are genetically programmed to procreate. We're not genetically programmed to have sex. No, we're genetically programmed to have the baby. So we're not really trying to have sex when we're having sex. We're trying to have babies. So when men are fucking women, they're thinking, I'm making a baby. I'm making a baby. That's what they're thinking. Fuck you, you're an idiot.
I don't even know where to go after this. I mean, first of all, I do not think people can be forced by law to limit the number of children that they have.
Oh, see, like I said, we can't even limit the number of children they have. So they can have as many children they want, as irresponsibly they want, and society has no right to say no. You can't do that to a kid. You're not allowed to have a kid to meet a Social Security policy. You're not allowed to have a kid because you need something or you want something. I mean, this is just bullshit. You want your own little farm worker. If that's what was in people's head, and you could prove that was what's in the guy's head when he has a kid, right? Even, you know, some religious nut even. And all he wants is somebody to work his farm. And you could prove that was in his head. You give him an MRI and you could see that's exactly what's in his head. Complete, goddamn, insensitive servitude. Forced servitude is the only thought in his fucking head. You say you wouldn't pass a law against it. I say, bullshit.
I think they have to become enlightened and decide for themselves. It is
well, why don't you have that same rule for every other law you probably defend? Right? Why stop a man from beating his wife? I mean, that's probably got more genetic fact or reality to it, more historical truth to it, than any idea of a man wanting to procreate. So why do you think you have a right to stop a man from doing that?
Basic disagreement that we have. And I also disagree with you about the efficacy of trying.
Yeah, well, I disagree with you about the efficacy of imposing life on a consciousness you don't ask permission to do the imposing. Yeah, if you were imposing it on yourself, all right, it was always you, your personality, your psychology that was going to be put in jeopardy, well then fine, go ahead and play your sadistic game. But that's not the way it works. It's an innocent person, you're doing an experiment on it. That's all fucking procreation is. It's a fucking irresponsible, sloppy, stupid experiment performed on a human being. It is plainly unacceptable. Yeah, there.
To extinguish all life. I think the extinction of all life, I mean, and I have actually read Schopenhauer. I mean, I know that sounds...
no, it's just stupid. Again, you're talking again about what books are read, there's been arguments made. The arguments have been made. We don't need to quote anybody anymore. The arguments are already on the table. All right, so this whole idea that we have to go back to Schopenhauer, I don't have to do that. I don't need Schopenhauer. I didn't use Schopenhauer. He has nothing to do with my argument. Or whatever.
Arrogant to some people. But all of this comes philosophically from the philosophy of Schopenhauer.
I mean, it's just so friggin' preposterous. I mean, it really is. Ideas occur to people. Was there one person who thought of the idea of you know, women having the right to own property? I mean, I remember you know, John Adams' wife writing about it. So I guess she invented the idea, or did somebody else invent the idea? I mean, this is just stupid. You can't sit there and take an idea like this and say it's all one person and everybody's just mimicking what that guy said. But that's your implication, because that's the cheaty kind of weasel arguments you use.
That's who, you know, Benatar is using a lot of Schopenhauer's ideas. And, you know, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of, like, being told, no matter what you say, that you haven't presented a good argument. I don't care.
You haven't presented any argument. Now you're just going to say, I don't care. Yeah, exactly.
Care what you think about my arguments. I mean, I can only, at this point, in frustration at you're trying to dictate to people what they must think. Just...
well, whatever. Like I said, it's through a process like anything else. Again, I've made the argument that I am a vegetarian for ethical reasons. If there was a point in time where we had a consensus, whatever that would be, a 70%, 80% majority who believed in vegetarianism, I believe we would have the right to tell the last 20% they're assholes and they're going to play along whether they like it or not.
Say, wake up and realize you nor I have the power to force anyone to do anything. nor should...
That's just it. Now, can anybody make anything out of that statement? You or I don't have the power. Of course we do. First, we have the power. That's undeniable. But even on some sort of ethical level, we obviously have the right and the power to tell some people they can't do what they want to do. I mean, are you going to argue that, let's say, pedophiles, are they genetically pedophiles, or are you going to blame something else? So maybe you should give me your pedophile theory. Are they doing what their genetics demand from them, or not? And if they are, then who the hell are you to tell them they can't?
We want to force them. We should encourage people to stop having children. And having a child is...
Yeah, I'm all for encouraging people not to have children. That's what I've been doing. And somehow that bothers you too. So it's really not about making the argument for not having children.
Not the equivalent of having a slave. You know,
says you. Okay? Your argument that it's not the equivalent is that what? There's some rational reason why people have children. They do it for a rational reason. Not because they want, not because they wish to in some way exploit the existence of the child. No, they're doing it for some sort of rational good purpose. Yeah, right. I don't think so. There, I don't think so.
no, it's just not.
I was using it rhetorically. I don't think so. Not as an argument.
And I know Benatar would disagree with me, and I know Schopenhauer would disagree with me, but I think anyone seriously thinking about the place of human beings on the planet and the stress we're putting on the environment would...
Again, that's not the subject. That's not antinatalism, okay? That's green philosophy or something. That's, you know, I don't know what it is, because you have a philosophy that's going to demand that you convince all the religious people not to be religious anymore. So from your philosophy, you're the one doomed to failure.
decide not to have children. But that doesn't mean that I can tell them not to. That doesn't mean that I can force them not to. That means...
Well, that means you will fail dismally then. That means you won't accomplish the task. That means, yeah, you give up now.
means that I can say, your genetic programming is telling you something that is not adaptive any longer.
Again, genetic programming is telling them something. So you're saying all these people have babies because they can't use condoms, and they can't use birth control, and they can't prevent themselves from having kids when they have sex. They're genetically programmed not to prevent conception. They're genetically programmed not to get in the way of a sperm meeting an egg. Yeah, I don't think so.
We are the first species who can actually talk to each other in that way. We can actually talk to each other about the fact.
When I said I don't think so, I was being sarcastic that time.
That our genetic programming often tells us to do things which are not in our best adaptive interest.
Again, we are not genetically programmed not to get in the way of sperm meeting egg. Alright, there's no such genetic program. We can get in the way quite easily and still enjoy having sex. So we can satisfy all our genetic programming on the subject of sex and procreation without procreating. That's right, we can do that. No problem. Like I said, hundreds of millions of people do it all the time. Yeah, and they're perfectly happy and comfortable, and you're going to tell me that they're genetically defective because they didn't have a baby. Okay. Oh, they don't need to have one.
that our best adaptive interests are now in seeing the complexity of problems, of seeing the environment for what it is, for seeing all of the depletions and stresses.
Yeah, well, why don't you see the environment for what it is? Why don't you answer my question? How many lion cubs have to die before their first birthday for you to say lions really aren't efficient enough to keep making?
That our existence puts on the environment. That's what this is. It's about seeing our genetic programming.
Yeah, again, so she said it like, what, 7, 8 times in this video, that we are genetically programmed to procreate. No, we are genetically programmed to enjoy sex. Sex has, in its natural context, the implication, the consequence of procreation. But it can be easily interrupted by simple methods, and therefore there is no procreation. There is no desire to have kids, there is a desire to have sex. I mean, how many times does this have to be repeated? This is idiotic.
And you want to just make it about the brute force of law.
Well, whatever. Like I said, in the end, yeah, you just don't let a little bit of slavery. You don't legalize a little bit of slavery. You don't legalize a little bit of, you know, smallpox farming. You don't just legalize a little bit of whatever it is, wife beating or child molesting or whatever the thing is that we're going to say you just can't do that shit. Yeah, you just don't let a little bit of it. That doesn't make any sense. No, you abolish it. You abolish the irresponsibility. You abolish the imposition. That's what this is about. Procreating is an imposition. If you don't really know what you're doing, you have no right to be doing it. And even if you know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, that's right. It's over.
I'm sorry. You know, talk to the governments that have tried this in the past. Talk to them about their frustrations in trying to make this into public policy.
Well, whatever. There's lots of ways you can do things. You know, they did it with the stick thing. You know, the one child thing. I think it was stupid. I have a whole voucher idea. Blah, 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 blah. Other ways to do it. I don't know what governments you're talking about. The only one I know about is the Chinese policy. And it did work. So let's not be silly about it, okay? It did work. It slowed down Chinese population increases. So, fail to you on that subject.
It doesn't work. You have to change people's minds. And you don't change people's minds through the brute force.
And again, what's the brute force? I make YouTube videos. Yeah. None of the videos have I talked about any, you know, let's go all the way to the end game last days. No, that's all you people's doing, okay? You opposers are the ones who want to focus on that, because that's to your advantage. So I would suggest to all the meat eaters that you want to defend meat eating, first call it genetic, okay? You'll have some evidence for that, all right? I mean, we had ancestors who definitely ate meat, no doubt about it. So you have a good genetic argument, and then you just make your no imposition argument, right? Because that's a winner right there. You can't impose. You can't tell me what I'm allowed to do. I'm doing what's natural. So you can't tell me not to. And then you force them to go all to the end game. You know, and how exactly, you know, you can't abolish it. So if you can't abolish it, then what are you bothering with? Right? That's the bottom line, isn't it? So, you know, force her to explain what she's going to do with those last slaughterhouses on Earth. Yeah.
Of insult.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's all I got to say. So anyway, Boundless Eyes made all this crap, called me, said sitting there saying, whatever. Yeah, well, she did react hysterically. Clearly sexist. His response is clearly sexist. Yeah, well, if that's what you believe, then you probably should unsub from me. But I'll make it easy for you. Could have used my little toolbox. So, yeah, fuck this bullshit. Sexist crap. I'm so sick of this nonsense. So whatever. Unsubscribe. Goodbye. Have a nice life. Blah, 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 blah. It's this bullshit. I'm the one that's given fair arguments. Bingo. There, so you should be unsubscribed now. Alright, anyway, till next time. And such.